Hi, Professor. My name is Kshitij Chaudhary, and my student ID is 100940301. And I'm going to submit this video as a part of assignment 2. Today, I'll be taking you through an in-depth analysis of the Auto Parts Corporation case, a detailed example of how ethics, leadership, and corporate responsibility intersect in real-world business scenarios. So this case challenges us to think as ethical leaders by examining what actions we might take when faced with legal violations, unethical decisions, and compromised workplace culture. So uh, we are introduced to David, the newly hired chief operating officer at APC, who finds himself in a troubling situations. Upon starting his new role, David uncovers a long list of ethical and legal issues, including unsafe work conditions, underpaid and untrained temporary workers, discriminatory hiring practices, unauthorized medical testing, non-disclosure agreements used to silence employees, and public misrepresentation by the company's CEO. In this video, I'll walk you through three major legal violations, six clear ethical issues, five courses of actions David could take, and five root causes of APC unethical culture, five preventive solutions, and most importantly, I'll reference five external scholarly sources that support this analysis integrated throughout the video as required, as you have asked in this assignment. So let's begin by examining the legal violations. So talking about the legal violations, David, the new COO at Auto Parts Corporation (APC), steps into a workplace riddled with serious legal problems, not minor oversights, but dangerous systematic violations of provincial laws that are meant to protect worker rights and safety. So let's explore the three most serious legal violations APC committed, beginning with workplace safety. So workplace safety violations, Ontario OSSA, the first and arguably most life-threatening violations at APC, involves a complete failure to follow Ontario's Occupational Health and Safety Act OHSA. Under OHSA, employees have a legal obligation to ensure that every worker operates in a safe and healthy environment. Specifically, they are required to train workers before assigning dangerous tasks, ensure machinery is properly guarded, provide fall protection when working at heights, maintain emergency resources like foster kits, uh, prevent foreseeable injuries through proactive planning, but APC blatantly ignored these basic obligations. So what violations are discovered? At first, unguarded machinery. The factory floor had multiple machines without protective barriers. Employees could easily make contact with fast-moving machines parts like gears or cutting blades, which are capable of causing amputations, severe injuries, or even death. No fall protection on high platforms. Workers were operating at heights exceeding 13 feet but without safety harness, guardrails, or nets. That's illegal. OHSA requires protective equipment for any work done over 3 meters, approx 10 feet. This risk was especially high for hired workers, many of whom were untrained temps. Missing first aid supplies. When WSIB inspectors looked at the facility, they found first aid kits were not replenished. Some kits were missing basic items like bandages and antiseptics. In the event of an accident, and in this kind of factory accidents are frequent, workers would have no access to immediate care. Minimal training. Perhaps the most shocking part was that lack of training. New workers, often from the temp agency, were reportedly given as little as 15 minutes of safety training before being sent to operate hazardous machinery. Some had never used such equipment before. Some had never used such equipment before in their lives. For comparison, OSSA guidelines recommend between 8 to 40 hours of safety training for factory roles, depending on risk level. Though This isn't just cutting conscience. This is institutional negligence. It reflects a cultural where leadership chops speed and low cost over human life. So, talking about the consequences, this failure result in 250,000 fine from WSIB, a significant penalty, but likely only a fraction of the company's profits. The case was also referred for possible criminal charges, which suggested that APC's negligence might rise to the level of criminal liability under Canadian law, particularly under provision that address criminal negligence causing bodily harm. So it has been taken as this reference has been taken from Occupational Health and Safety Act (OSSA) Ontario. This case proves one thing: having a safety manual isn't enough. UPC had one, but it sat unused. What's needed is execution and informants. Failing to follow OSSA isn't just risky; it's illegal and, in this case, potentially deadly. Next one is discriminatory hiring practices, Ontario Human Rights Code. The second legal violation is rooted in discrimination. David found out that APC had explicitly instructed their staffing agency, just-in-time labor, not to send over immigrants or people from Quebec. These instructions were documented. That's clear and undeniable breach of the Ontario Human Rights Code. So why is this illegal? The Human Rights Code prohibits employees from discriminating against potential or current employees on the basis of race, place of origin, citizenship, ethnic origin, language or accent, religion, sex, and other protected grounds. So by excluding applicants based on their region, for example, Quebec, or immigrants started APC engaged in discriminatory hiring practices. This type of behavior is not only unethical, it's illegal under Section 524. So this kind of hiring policy sends a message that only certain people are worthy of opportunity, which is dangerous for both society and corporate culture. So this has been taken from Ontario Human Rights at Work 2008. Number three, medical privacy violations is we have gone through all the documents and all the reports. We found we uncovers David uncovers is related to medical privacy. The third and final legal issues David uncovers, which is related to medical privacy. Workers were required to submit urine samples for routing drug screening, which is fairly common in the industrial environment. However, APC later repurposed these samples for unrelated medical testing and did not obtain consent from the employees. This is direct violation of the Personal Health Information Protection Act (PSIPA). What does PSIPA require? So consent must be explicit before collecting, using, or disclosing a person's health data. Uh, Employers must be transparent about how medical information will be used. Employees must have the right to refuse without fear of losing their job. APC violated every one of these principles using biological sample beyond the scope of their original intent is a serious without asking is a serious offense. So, as per the expert insight, Dr. Cavakian, Ontario's former Information and Privacy Commissioner, created a framework called Privacy by Design. It is now recognized internationally and emphasizes. So, privacy must be embedded into the design and architecture of IT system and business practices. But APC didn't embedded privacy; they erased it. Instead of protecting their workers' most personal data, they used it for unapproved purposes. And this is a betrayal of trust and a massive legal liability. So it has been taken from Privacy by Design, IPC Ontario. Moving to the part two, ethical issues. While legal violations create formal liabilities, ethical issues reflect the form and the moral failure of leadership. In the Auto Part Corporation case, unethical behavior was not limited to one department. Uh, it was systemic. deeply rooted in the company's structure and leadership culture. Let's walk through six major ethical issues that reveal how APC sacrificed human dignity, fairness, and transparency for profit and power. So, number one is exploitation of temporary workers. One of the clearest and most disturbing ethical failure at APC was how intentionally replaced unionized full-time workers with temporary underpaid untrained labor. Instead of treating workers as human beings deserving of fair compensation, job security, and a safe environment, they were seen as disposable resources. So temps at APC earned minimum wage, received no benefits, health insurance, sick leave, etc. Uh, had zero job security, they could be fired anytime for any reason. Were assigned hazardous tasks, including operating dangerous machinery without proper training, without proper hours of training, had no time to build trust or relationship with the company or fellow workers. This isn't just a business strategy; it's an exploitation of economic vulnerability. So many of these temp workers were migrants, newcomers, and are individuals with limited options, making them making them less likely to speak out, unionize, or report unsafe conditions. According to Farrell at 2021, the principle of fairness and respect for a person is a core ethical tenet. All workers, regardless of employment type, should be treated with dignity, fairness, and care. APC violates this principle at every level. So it has been taken from Farrell et al. Business Ethics, Ethical Decision Making Cases. So number two is undisclosed conflict of interest. Uh, this ethical issue strikes at the heart of corporate trust. It was revealed that CEO Michael Smith secretly owned the temp staffing agency, just-in-time labor, that provides all the replacement workers. That means Michael was profiting personally from the decision to eliminate full-time staff. Uh, this is a textbook example of a conflict of interest. The CEO had a private financial stake in vendor relationship. His decisions weren't based on what was best for APC, but was benefited him personally. He failed to disclose this relationship to the board of shareholders. Workers had no idea that their employers' decisions were being made based on personal greed. So, according to Robert, thus Ka's work and business ethics such behavior undermine ethical leadership and violates fiduciary duty. The obligation of executive to act in the best interest of their organization and stakeholders. So this has been taken from the SCA 2007 Contemporary Reflection of Business Ethics. Number three is neglecting training practices. Another disturbing ethical failure. New employees were given less than 30 minutes of safety trainings before being placed on the floor, some of them operating heavy machinery and hazardous equipment. Even for roles with serious injury risk, including crushing, cutting, or falling hazards, these workers receive no meaningful instruction. Compare this with OSSA Occupational Safety and Health Administration guidelines in North America, which basically recommends 8 to 40 hours of training depending on role complexity. Emphasize hands-on simulation, not just theory. Requires proof of understanding before employees are clear for independent work. By cutting training short, APC created a ticking time bomb. It wasn't a question of it someone would get hurt. It was when. Negligent training is not just bad management. It shows a reckless disregard for human life. It's unethical because it treats safety as an inconvenience rather than a priority. So it has been taken from OS that's a safety and health training guidelines. Number four is NDAs. NDAs. used to silence a worker, which is basically known as non-disclosure agreement. So David discovers that APC required employees to sign non-disclosure agreement (NDS) and forced arbitration clauses, not for protecting company secrets, but for silencing those who raised concerns. These NDAs were designed to bury evidence of safety violations, harassment, and discrimination. This is an unethical abuse of a legal tool. According to according to the Harvard Business Review, using NDAs in this way creates a toxic culture where victims feel isolated and afraid. Wrongdoing continues unreported. Leadership is insulated from accountability. In ethical organizations, NDAs should be limited in scope. They should never be used to prevent people from reporting illegal or harmful behavior. So this has been taken from NDAs silence more than secrets. When NDAs silence more than secrets, Harvard Business Review. Number five is misleading public statements. In media interviews, CEO Michael Smith said, "We trained like crazy." But the WSIB inspection report and David's own internal audit proved the opposite. So there was no training records, no sign-in sheets, and numerous workers confirmed that they had little time, no instruction before being put to work. This isn't justice when it's lying to the public, stakeholders, and regulators. So misleading the media and shareholders violates corporate integrity, and a misrepresentation of fact is an ethical red flag in any organization. So a company reputation is built on trust, and trust is fragile. Number six is toxic leadership and lack of accountability. Finally, one of the deepest ethical failures at APC was the leadership culture itself. The newly appointed COO wasn't even allowed to meet the CEO, uh, Michael Smith. So executives remain hidden, avoid tough questions, and showed no desire for improvement. In ethical leadership theory, there is a concept called tone at the top. According to the research by Brown and Trevino, ethical cultures are built when leadership communicates clear values, acts consistently with those values, takes responsibility for wrongdoing, listen to stakeholders and employees. But at APC, none of this existed. The top of the organization was silent, secretive, and self-serving. So this has been taken from Brown, Amy, and Trevino, Ethical Leadership, a review and a future directions, which was published in 2006. Now moving to the part three, what are what options the David had? So now that David, the newly appointed COO, has uncovered these serious legal and ethical issues at Auto Parts Corporation (APC), he faces a moral and professional crossroads. What should he do? Each path has consequence for himself, for the company, and most importantly for the workers at risk. So here are five major options David could consider along with their pros and cons. Option one. So the David can report to WSIB or a government regulator. So what what this means? David could file a formal complaint with the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board (WSIB) or other regulatory agencies like the Ministry of Labor. These authorities can launch a thorough investigation, uh, levy fines or criminal charges, force the company to implement compliance changes, or help protect workers from further harm. This is a powerful and effective option, especially since the WSIB is already aware of some violations, but David could add further evidence and insider insight to strengthen their case. However, there is a major risk for David as well. So David signed a non-disclosure agreement. Reporting this information could be interpreted as a breach of contract leading to a lawsuit or professional damage. Even if the law protects whistleblowers, the stress and cost of legal retaliation are real. So while this option helps the most people, it could have heavy personal consequences for David unless he has strong legal support. Option two, David can go to the media. So what does this mean? David could leak internal documents or speak to journalists. This could lead to public outrage, news coverage that pressures the company to change. Support from advocacy groups or union. The benefit of going public is that it shifts power to the people. The court of public opinion can be powerful too, especially when legal system moves slowly. So, what are the cons? What's the downside? So the downside is like David's reputation could suffer. He could be blacklisted in this industry as a troublemaker. The company could sue him for defamation, especially if any details are unclear. Media whistleblowing is high risk, high impact. It's effective but dangerous for a person in David's positions, especially if he lacks legal protection. Option three, resign and document everything. What does this mean? So David could choose to resign from APC quietly, but not before gathering and safely storing evidence of all unethical activities, emails, reports, photos, or audit logs. So uh, what this option could do to David? So this option protects David's personal and legal integrity, leaves a paper trail for further action, for future action, allows him to walk away without further damage. However, the big ethical drawback uh, in this is it doesn't help the workers who remain behind. The company might continue its abuse unchecked. David would be choosing preservation over advocacy. So while it's a safe choice, it may compromise his values and miss an opportunity to create change. Option four, David could request an independent audit. So this means David could formally recommend that APC conduct a third-party ethics or safety audit using an external firm to objectively assess the situation. So what are the benefits of doing that? The company can't claim we didn't know. The findings are documented. It forces transparency. It avoids public exposure, which the company might prefer. So, but there is a catch. This option only works if leadership approves the audit. So, given the CEO's track record, it's unlikely the request would be granted. Even if approved, they may choose a biased auditor or bury the results. This option is ideal in a healthy organization, but APC's culture may render it on useless unless backed by pressure from the board. So option five, David could appeal to the board of directors. So this means David could bypass the CEO entirely and bring his findings to the board of directors who have the legal power to remove the CEO and implement changes. So what are the advantages of this? So it help the it may help to lead to a long-term structural fix, could prompt investigations, retraining, or even leadership replacement, demonstrates their ethical courage. But again, this option is not without danger. So if the board is loyal to the CEO, they may see David as disloyal. He could be fired, silenced, or labeled a threat. There is no guarantee the board will act in good faith. Still, if David has enough evidence and presents it professionally, this may be the most ethical and strategic option for meaningful change, especially if supported by legal counsel. So, uh, reflecting on David's dilemma, each option carries risk but also possibility. David's decision depends on like his personal values, the legal advice he receives, his willingness to sacrifice comfort for justice, and the urgency of protecting vulnerable workers. In ethics, inaction is a choice and one that carries consequences. The best option may involve a hybrid strategy, quietly preparing documentation, consulting legal support, and appealing to the board of regulators in a structured step-by-step way. So in part four, I'm going to explain about the root causes. To to solve any ethical crisis, you must understand its root causes, the systemic patterns that allow unethical behaviors to thrive. At Autopaths Corporation (APC), these causes go far deeper than a few bad decisions. They represent an organizational failure across leadership, governance, and accountability. Uh, let's walk through the five major root causes. Number one, profit over people. So at APC, efficiency and cost cutting were clearly prioritized over human safety and dignity. The leadership intentionally replaced full-time unionized staff with low-wage temporary workers. Safety gear and training were treated as optional expenses, not requirements. Even when employees raised concerns, the response was to keep production moving. So this mindset, putting profits ahead of people, creates a workplace culture where risk and injury become acceptable as long as the bottom line improves. This is a violation of stakeholder ethics, which argues that workers, not just shareholders, deserve protection and respect. Number two, no accountability. Even though David was the COO, he was not allowed to meet the CEO, Michael Smith. This reflects an alarming lack of accountability from leadership. So executives, they avoided direct communications, delegated responsibility without oversight, refused to take ownership for failures. This is a sign of which is basically a sign of toxic leadership, where executives are insulated from consequences. In ethical leadership theory, tone at the top determines how seriously employees take values and rules. If the top leaders ignore ethical responsibilities, the rest of the company will too. Number three, legal loopholes. So NDS and arbitration clauses were used not to protect intellectual property but to silence whistleblowers and victims. Employees were pressured to sign away their right to speak. Any legal complaints were forced into private arbitration rather than public courts. This allowed unethical behavior to continue unchecked while shielding the company from legal exposure. It's a strategic misuse of legal instruments that prioritize secrecy over justice. Many companies now face scrutiny for these tactics, especially after the Me Too movement, which exposed how NDAs were used to cover up abuse. Number four, high turnover. The company had over 1,500 temporary workers rotating through 400 roles. That means the average worker did not stay long enough to learn the job properly, receive full training, build relationship or loyalty. This creates a workplace that is disconnected, constantly changing, and unable to form a safety culture. When people know they won't be there long and aren't invested, they are less likely to speak up or follow best practices. APC excessive reliance on temporary labor created instability that made ethical violations more likely. Number five is no oversight. So perhaps most concerning is that external audit firms were fired when they asked too many questions or got too close to the truth. APC then brought in less thorough auditors who wouldn't change the leadership. Sorry, who wouldn't challenge the leadership. This shows that the company deliberately evaded scrutiny. Proper third-party audits were as ethical checks They bring transparency, risk assessment, and accountability. When companies manipulate that process, they create blind spots that allow unethical behavior to flourish. Moving to the part five, which is preventive solutions. So now that we understand the causes of the crisis, now let's explore five practical and effective solutions FEC or any similar company can adopt to prevent uh, future ethical failures. So number one is ethical leadership, which is tone at the top. One of the most important factors in ethical governance is the tone set by senior leaders. According to honesty and Colombo 2023 organizations with strong ethical leadership, where CEOs model integrity are far less likely to experience fraud, negligence, or cultural breakdowns. So this is known as the tone at the top principle. Leaders must be visible and vocal about ethics. Leader must model the behaviors they expect from others, and leaders must take responsibility while failures occur. So at APC, the CEO avoided responsibility and lied to the media. In contrast, an ethical leadership would have faced the issues, spoken directly to workers, and taken corrective action early. So it has been taken from the honesty and Palombo art, which is published in 2023 to at the top for sustainable corporate governance to prevent fraud. Number two is anonymous whistleblower channels. So these things I have seen in many international non-government organizations where they have a platform, so the users or the staffs can report about any abuse or any fraudulence uh, through anonymous whistleblower platform. So based on the report, companies should provide employees with safe, confidential ways to report misconduct. This includes hotlines operated by third-party firms, anonymous online platforms, whistleblower protection policies. According to global consultancies like Deloitte, anonymous reporting channels help surface issues early before they become legal crises. So this is especially important in environment with temporary workers who might fear job loss or retaliation if they speak up. Number three is inclusive hiring practices. APC's discriminatory hiring practices violated both ethics and the law. To prevent this, all hiring vendors must undergo compliance audits. Contracts should prohibit bias based on race, origin, or language. Internal HR staff must be trained to detect discriminatory practices. A culture of diversity and inclusion begins with how people are brought into the organization. Companies that fail to ensure fair access to opportunity often face both legal penalties and brand damage. So number four, mandatory safety training. All employees, but especially temporary employees, must receive robust hands-on safety training aligned with OSHA and OHSA standards. Minimum training 8 to 40 hours, not just 15 minutes. Refreshers must be conducted annually. Records must be maintained and audited. Training isn't just about legal compliance, it's about creating a workplace where everyone knows how to protect themselves and others. This also builds a sense of shared responsibility and professional pride. So number five, annual third-party ethics audits. Ethics should be measured, monitored, and reviewed just like finances. Every year, APC or any responsible companies should hire independent ethics consultants to to review HR practices, access compliant handlings procedures, check hiring, training, and safety systems, interview employees' confidentiality. So the results of these audits should be shared with both staffs and shareholders, demonstrating transparency and a commitment to improvement. So root causes tell us like why the system failed. Preventive solutions shows us how to fix it. It's not enough to punish unethical behavior. Companies must build systems that make ethical behavior the default. At APC, if these five solutions had been in place from the beginning, hundreds of workers could have been spared exploitation and danger, and they wouldn't have had to face an ethical crisis alone. So, in conclusion, as we reach the end of this case analysis, let's reflect on the key lessons we can take away from the Autopaths Corporation scenario. So, David, the newly appointed COO, found himself in a moral and legal minefield. He didn't cause the problem, but he inherited the responsibility to act. So, the workplace he walked into was one where safety was ignored, temporary workers were exploited, personal data was mishandled, discrimination was normalized. The CEO operated with impunity. This was not one. This was not a one-time lapse in judgment. It was a systematic ethical failure across leadership, governance, and culture. What makes this case so important is how it challenges us, not just to recognize wrong, but to stand against it. David faced hard choices. None of his options were easy, and each came with risk. But this is what ethical leadership demands: the courage to choose what is right, even when it comes with personal sacrifice. As we have seen, true ethical transformation at a company like APC will require strong values leadership, strong values based leadership, transparent accountable systems, inclusion and equity in hiring, safe, well-trained and work environments, and most importantly, a culture that respects every worker's dignity. So the broader takeaway here is that laws alone aren't enough. Compliance is the floor, not the ceiling. Ethics go further. They ask like, what kind of company do we want to be? What kind of leader will I become? David's situation is fictional, but thousands of workers across industries face similar conditions every day. And people like us, like future leaders, will face moments when we have to speak up, take action, and drive change. So just like David, we choose integrity over silence and justice over convenience. So thank you for listening to my presentation. So I have so for the reference that you have asked in the assignment in this assignment, so I'll submit it in the Word file while submitting the video link as well. So for the assignment two, that's all. Thank you.